So if you haven't been on my channel in the past 6 months, you probably haven't seen my videos about completing the Splatoon games while using the minimum amount of squid transformations. Well, now's the perfect time to change that. In this video, I'll be attempting to beat Splatoon 3 while using the least amount of squid transformations. It's actually called swim form in this game, but just to make everything a whole lot easier, I'm going to stick with squid form. The rules for this challenge are simple as always. Anytime I turn into a squid, I add a point to our final score. I can be in squid form for as long as I want until I turn back into an inkling. Ride rails are fine to use as long as I don't transform while I'm on the rail, and using launch pads will not count towards our final score since it will be put into the animation squid transformation category. This means that an animation with squid form is happening, but you can't really move while the animation is playing. So let's say I'm perfectly in the middle of a boss kettle and press ZL. The entrance animation plays, and the only way to interrupt it is to stop holding down ZL. This means that moving in any way will not interrupt the animation besides the actual button that activates the animation. Hopefully I explained that well, but anyways, let's start this challenge. The game starts with the character creation, and the only thing that matters here is making Little Buddy look like a bank receptionist. After creating our main characters, we can resist the urge to swim in this conveniently placed ink and grab this loot crate with the Splattershot Jr. We get a short tutorial showing us how to shoot at targets, but after that we're on our own. There are some boxes on the other side of this wall, but as far as I know, you can't really reach them without being right next to them. This causes us to climb up not one, but 2 walls. So far this isn't the greatest start, but 2 seems to be the expected number for tutorials, so I'm not really complaining. After entering the train, we get sent to Splatville, a city that has Among Us light shows and a mysterious hole leading to a location known as the Crater. We get a little introduction to this area and we see all this fuzzy ooze surrounding it. Our job is to complete missions to get rid of all the fuzziness, and this brings us to our first mission, Octarians in the Crater. Yikes! All we have to do for this first mission is walk forwards and shoot at some balloons. 0 squids required. After completing our first mission, we learn how to use power eggs to remove the fuzzy ooze and progress more through the crater. This eventually brings us to our second mission titled Sink into the Ink and Swim. And I won't lie, this didn't seem too promising, but the majority of the level just had us walk around in circles until we had to climb up this wall, which does cost us 1 squid transformation. Our third mission is called Boxes Locked, Keys Please. This mission has the worst possible object in the game, the ink rail. This object has been the one thing that has inconvenienced me the most throughout this entire series. You have to turn into a squid to actually use these ink rails, and on top of that, 3 of the ink rails are locked behind boxes. So that already adds 3 squid transformations to our counter. I was able to get the number of squids needed to complete this mission down to 6, but it was still quite a lot. Our final mission for this area is called What Are They? Can We Stop Them? This mission isn't too difficult aside from the fact that we need to use this boost panel to reach the end. 1 squid needed. After completing all 4 missions in the crater, we can throw Little Buddy at this large area of fuzz and meet up with a very familiar face. The new and, not really improved DJ Octavio. This boss battle is pretty much the same fight as the first game, shoot at his hands while he's punching, and try to dodge everything coming our way. After defeating Octavio, fuzzy ooze surrounds us, and the entire floor collapses, making the 3 of us fall down this pit flushed away style. We also get robbed of everything we had, including our power eggs and shoes during this fall. But at least we're okay when we wake up in this snowy area called Alterna. This location pretty much replaces the crater. We get a whole new set of missions to complete and more ooze for Little Buddy to chow down on. Our first mission is called Get to Know Alterna, Your Only Choice. Now I'm well aware that this is the only mission at the moment that I can play, but they also force you to use squid form multiple times throughout the mission, and I wasn't about to willingly use squid form this time. I figured that maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to complete this mission at all. In the previous Splatoon games, you'd enter a level and grab power eggs as normal, but if you left the level, you'd lose all the power eggs you obtained. However, in this game, Splatoon 3, if you grab power eggs from a level and then leave that level, you keep the eggs you collected. This means that every single level in this main portion of the game is 100% optional, since you only really need to defeat the 3 bosses of Alterna to finish the game. This means that I'm definitely not going to be playing every single level in this game, but if you'd like to see me 100% this game with the minimum amount of squid transformations though, please like the video. So after collecting power eggs by replaying the same mission about 12 times, I was able to clear the first area with fuzzy ooze, and successfully reach the next portion of land without using squid form a single time. Now that we have access to more missions, I think it would be a good idea to actually play some of these, just so that removing fuzzy ooze will take a lot less time. I decided to unlock Relic Restoration, and what caused the Big Bang? You! I chose to play the second option first since you can easily complete this mission in like 2 seconds, but the Relic Restoration mission is definitely impossible. I decided to munch on some more hairiness to reach a mission titled The String's the Thing. This mission has us utilize the Tri-Stringer, and we can pretty much just walk through the entire mission as normal. 0 squids needed. I tried out Zip, Splat, and Jump next, and this mission gives us the Zipcaster special to use throughout the entire mission. It actually felt really cool to just fly through an entire area while defeating enemies and grabbing orbs. 0 squids. Another mission we can play was Deadly Dance Hall Jump Jump. This mission was horrifying to say the least, but at the end of the day, I don't think anyone has ever used squid form to complete this mission. I'm pretty sure that was the final mission in this area that we can actually complete without squid form, so I decided it was time to leave this first section of Alterna. Before we leave though, we get stopped in our tracks by Deep Cut, and they want a treasure hidden in Alterna. Little side note by the way, I'm pretty sure there's always a light source pointing at Fry's forehead at all times, since there isn't really a noticeable glare on any of the other characters. After talking to Deep Cut, we can move on to the second section of Alterna, which gives us some more missions, and of course, a boss fight. Before we start doing anything here, I would like to talk about how boss battles work in this game. The 3 boss battles in the side islands of Alterna all have a Deep Cut member as their boss. For Section 2's boss fight, we have to launch Splat Bombs on top of the Octo Stomp to deal damage to Fry. However, that isn't quite enough to get the job done. If you try to throw a second bomb, it still won't be enough damage. And if you try throwing Little Buddy, he'll just bounce off the boss like they have a force field. Or in this case, a 4 field. This means that the only way to defeat this boss would be to climb up and deal that last bit of damage. But since we can skip levels in this game, we can actually come back to this boss fight a bit later when we're more prepared. Speaking of preparations, let's talk about how I'll be actually preparing next. By pressing X on your Switch controller, you can open up a menu that includes an upgrade page. In this upgrade page, you may find things like more small fry durability, or a better hero shot, or splat bombs. You need something called Sardinium to actually activate these upgrades, and you can find these Sardinium all around Alterna, meaning that we could actually scour the entire map to find Sardinium just so we can complete the first boss. I decided to revisit the first area in Alterna to grab some Sardinium. 2 of these can be found by shooting at these buried items, and 1 of them can be found by removing some ooze. I tried to collect Sardinium for Section 2, but they're all really high up for some reason, and I didn't want to use squid form at this moment. The only mission in this area that seemed possible is called Splitting Crosshairs, and it's a pretty easy mission, but the ending's actually quite brutal without being able to reload our weapons fast. 0 squids needed. We started to get really stacked on power orbs, so I decided to go to Section 3 next, and you can actually get all 3 Sardinium in this section without any problems. I didn't really have any problems with unlocking missions either, aside from 1 of them. I tried to get some extra orbs by completing missions, and I tried out the Curling Bomb mission, which has you utilize the power of the curling bombs. Nothing really makes you use squid form, so this was an easy mission. I also tried out the Ink Wheel level, and it started off decently easy. We did have to use our splashdown to make it past this wall though. There was a little bit of an issue after this section however. They gave us pretty much nothing to work with on this part, and honestly I don't even think squid form would help us with this area. Maybe I just can't see something I'm supposed to, so I decided to skip that level and move on to Section 4 of Alterna. You can surprisingly unlock every single mission this section has to offer without being in squid form, and this includes the boss fight. Before I start the boss though, I should probably get some orbs for the road. The path to perfect penmanship, no squids needed. Amusing a bemused muse also doesn't need squid form. And if those aren't birds, I think you could already tell that every level I play doesn't need squid form at this point. 2 of these Sardinium are pretty easy to collect since you could pretty much just go anywhere in this section of the game. But now I think it's time we should start a boss battle. This battle is against Shiver and her shark. All we really have to do is shoot at the shark while it's swimming around in water. The shark does attack a couple of times, but as long as we keep moving, we can easily complete this boss fight and pick up this piece of treasure without using squid form. We also get some free sardinium for our troubles. Next up is the 5th section, and these missions were pretty easy to grab since we barely needed to eat any of the fuzzy ooze. The sardinium was also pretty easy to find. Zipping over the neighborhood, simply zip-tastic, and a compulsive collector's paradise were all easily possible without squid form. I couldn't really know anything else about this section except for the fact that I noticed that splat bombs don't open up missions for some reason. Section 6 for Alterna is up next, and you're going to hope you stocked up some power eggs for this one, because you're going to need nearly 1,000 eggs to be able to open up any sort of fuzziness here. Lucky for me though, I had just enough eggs for the job. Conserve ink splat sustainability was our first mission here, and our job was to make it through this entire level while conserving our ink. The first section was pretty easy, and the second section was the exact opposite of stealth. I mean, they said I was supposed to conserve my ink, so I guess I don't really need to shoot at these guys while I walk right past them. Also, I have no idea why the Octo Sniper AI is just so terrible now. They try to predict my movements, but they end up missing a lot more than they usually would. One of the final sections has us walk up this tight spiral platform, and there are some octocopters chasing us as we walk up. This was definitely the scariest part of this entire run, I will say that, but after moving past these octocopters, we can reach an area with moving platforms. And if you've watched these videos before, you can probably guess what trick I'm brewing up right now. Remember all those times I messed with momentum in the previous videos? Well, we can abuse the momentum of these moving platforms right here to complete this gap in the spiral. And just like that, we can complete this mission without squid form. Enter the Stamp Gauntlet was our next mission, and it was actually extremely easy. But after completing this mission, I realized that I was finally able to unlock the ink-efficient splat bombs. But I wanted to defeat the boss in Section 5 before I went back to Section 2. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a way to reach the boss kill without using squid form, so I just took the hit and climbed up these walls. This boss fight is against Big Man, and he actually has the ability to turn into the Phanta Manta from Super Mario Sunshine. Even the color of the ink is the same as the Manta's electrical goop. I have to say, this is by far my favorite boss battle in this entire game. It's just perfect. Anyways, if you've completed this boss fight in Super Mario Sunshine, you'll know that this fight can be beaten without squid form. I did have some troubles on the final phase of the fight though, since I kept running out of ink, and you kind of need to shoot at the Phanta rays as they swim by. Second treasure obtained. This now leaves Fry as the final boss that we'll need to defeat. I headed back to section 2 of Alterna and activated these ink rails. There was nothing else I could have really done here, so I did have to use squid form to move up these ink rails. I hopped out of squid form to remove some hair stuck in these grates, and guess what they revealed? Another ink rail. Wow. This boss battle is against Fry, and as I said earlier in this video, she has an insane amount of health. Let's see if we actually have a chance against her now, since we have the upgraded splat bombs. Fry can spawn in some eels, and a few of them have some glasses on, and if we shoot at them, we can knock down the octo stamp she's standing on. After the octo stomp has fallen, we can throw splat bombs on top of it. In the past, we'd only be able to throw 2 splat bombs up there, and it wouldn't really take care of Fry as we would have wanted. But now that our bombs are more ink efficient, we can actually throw 3 up there, and of course it does enough damage to finish the job. The second and third phases are pretty much unchanged, just they're slightly harder, meaning that all 3 boss battles in Alterna are possible to complete with 0 squid transformations. After collecting the final treasure, we can actually combine all 3 treasures we found in an epic building montage. I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue what we just built, but it's sharp and we can cut through all this fuzziness in the middle of Alterna. This middle section of Alterna contains a rocket, and we're going to have to climb up this area to reach the rocket. The middle section of Alterna contains 4 areas leading to the rocket, and these areas are similar to how Octo Expansion's finale was, so expect our squid counter to go up quite a bit during this finale. Area 1 starts out with us misplacing our hero shot, but thankfully we had Little Buddy to help us out with some pressure plates and enemy bombing. After that, we reach this area with 2 locked items, and we need to find keys to open up these locks. The first lock was easily obtainable, but the second one, not so much. I decided to let this ink wheel we unlocked from grabbing the first key run up this wall just in case it might be helpful later. Now we must use 1 squid to go through these grates, and 2 more to use these ink gushers, since for some reason there's grates placed right above the ink gushers. After grabbing this key, I stayed in squid form and slithered on the floor until I unlocked the next lock. This lock had a pressure plate that will move this wall upwards once activated, but instead of stepping on it, I climbed up the wall and threw little buddy at it. After that, there wasn't too much to worry about, but at the end of this area, we did have to climb through this vent. At least we got our gun back though. The second area is pretty easy to get to without the squid, but we do have to use squid form to actually enter in this area. This area is pretty much showcasing all the special weapons in the game, so it's pretty much for the people who skipped most of the levels and just didn't get to use these, I guess. Anyways, they gave us 2 unskippable walls that were decently spread out. This was completely unneeded, by the way. They also provided us with the crab towards the end, and I was originally going to count the crab as squid form for when you turn into a ball, but now I see it more as being inside of an ink cannon now, which I haven't been counting throughout this entire series. You also can't use ink rails while being a crab, and that's mostly why I'm not counting it. We still have to use this ink rail though, so that's 3 squids total for this area. The third area requires an ink rail to get to, and this area has us fight some enemies on a moving platform. I don't really need to say anything about this part of the game since it was unbelievably easy. The fourth and final area required us to use an ink rail to enter, and we were tasked with climbing up this large spire. Everything's pretty easy up until we reach this area with the crab tank. We'll need to use this ink rail and then go up these walls using 2 squids. However, I kind of thought of a cool idea. What if we threw bombs up here before going on the ink rail? Yeah, that didn't really work out for me. So instead I grabbed the crab tank and used the ink rail after making it to this wall. I was able to use the crab tank to climb up just barely. But right after the crab tank expires, we do have to use squid form to climb past this wall. After that, we reach this area with a pressure plate. They don't really give us anything to work with for now, so we'll have to climb up this wall to progress. Thankfully, they provide us with the Zipcaster special after climbing this wall, making the rest of the area possible. After completing all 4 areas, we can climb up this long staircase, and everybody knows that all long staircases lead to a final battle. After climbing up this staircase, we see Captain Cuttlefish in the forbidden form, and we also find out that our final boss is Mr. Grizz, and he wants the whole world to be all hairy with no bald people allowed. So he flies into the distance on his rocket to do just that. We unfortunately don't have the power to follow him, but thankfully Deep Cut has our back, and they use their abilities from their boss fights to help us go to space. After sticking the landing, clearly, we can see a whole bunch of fuzzy ooze on the ship. We also see some giant golden eggs that we can use to eat our way out of this giant hairy mess. We can see 3 eggs in the next section, and the first 2 look pretty simple to grab, but the third one on the other hand looks kind of out of our reach. There's an egg on top of this block, and we can't really jump on top of it. Luckily for us, we can actually go right next to Mr. Grizz to activate his heavy attack that launches us an insane distance away. We could just barely reach the egg by using this. The next section has 3 more eggs, but this time they're all on blocks. Mr. Grizz also starts to turn the rocket around, and I thought I could use this to my advantage. But unfortunately, he only spins it around 1 time, allowing us to grab 1 egg at most. I decided to use 1 squid here, since I could ink all 3 blocks to grab the eggs. I wish Mr. Grizz could have used his spin more than once, but I guess it is what it is. After completing that section, we can get a short little break, and collect these eggs all lined up together. But right after that easy section, we reach an area that has a really far out platform that would be impossible to reach without squid form. I did have to grab this egg though, so that's going to be another squid. After this, the entire rest of the egg collecting was pretty easy, and we were able to deal the last bit of damage to Mr. Grizz. He still wasn't defeated yet though. While he still had some fight left in him, he explodes the rocket while we're on top of it. We get launched way far back, but DJ Octavio surprisingly comes to our rescue. Little Buddy also transforms into Big Buddy while thankfully keeping the bank receptionist hairstyle. Now it's up to us to finish the job by taking control of the Octobot King. We can enter the Octobot King like we would an ink cannon, so this costs us absolutely 0 squids. We can use the vacuum on the rocket to suck up all these fuzzballs on Mr. Grizz. But when you get rid of one, you'll instantly get knocked out of the Octobot. And if you aren't holding onto the fire button, you'll instantly get put into squid form. so I had to make sure I was always shooting while controlling the Octobot. A few enemies will try to stop us while we're controlling the Octobot, but they weren't too much of a problem. After popping all these furballs, we can attack Mr. Grizz head on and finish the job. We just completed Splatoon 3 with the minimum amount of squid transformations possible. Our final score for this challenge came out to the low number of 29. I'm really surprised that we can beat this game with only 29 squid transformations. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and yeah, that's all I got. Just kidding, there's a new video that I'm working on currently. Check out the trailer.